we come to our next topic, which is undue influence. Now, before going to the definition, let me tell you in simple words what undue influence is. What do you think is undue? Undue means unnecessary, it's unwarranted, which is not required, more than required. We normally use undue as you taking undue advantage of me. Let's say this is a sentence. Here, undue means more than what is required, unnecessary, unwarranted. So, here also, undue means something more than which is required. Influence means influencing the mind of the counterparty, convincing his mind, changing his mind, changing his will. And how do I do that? By influencing, by convincing him. But this influence, this convincing is undue, it is not required. So, by these words, you can understand that undue influence is again playing with the emotions of the counterparty, playing with the psychology. Whereas coercion was putting physical pressure, undue influence is putting mental pressure. It's like blackmailing someone, emotional blackmail, or playing with the emotions. You put emotional pressure, psychological pressure, mental pressure. If you do so, it's called as undue influence. Now let us understand what undue influence is as per the Indian Contract Act. Now it has been defined in the section 16 of the Act. How is it defined? It is a contract is said to be induced by undue influence. Now please mark the word induced. Induced means it is entered into because of. It is a result of undue influence. It is a result of undue influence, where the relations subsisting between the parties are such that, now the important word in the second line is the relations. Undue influence will always be applied in relations. Now that relation can be blood relation or it can be some other relation. We can understand that a father can apply undue influence on his son. A son will agree to whatever his father says. At the same time, a father will agree whatever his son says. So both have the ability to influence the mind of the other. But will you agree to what a person walking on the road tells you? You will not. We only get influenced by our relatives, by our parents, by our sons and daughters, by our brothers and sisters, by our friends, by our teachers, by our employers. We tend to agree what our employers say. So, in all of these cases, some or the other kind of relation exists. When a father influences his child, there's blood relation. When a friend influences other friend, there's social relation between them, a relation of friends. There's master-servant relation between an employer and employee. So some kind of relation exists in all these cases. However, to apply coercion, relation is not required. Coercion can be applied on anybody, but undue influence is often applied only on our near and dear ones or persons with whom we have some relations. So it said the contract is said to be induced by undue influence where the relation subsisting between the parties, subsisting means existing between the parties, are such that one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of the other. This is the most important word or most important phrase. Undue influence can be defined as dominating the will of other. Here what is happening is one party is dominating the will of other. It is in such a position that it can dominate the will of other. A teacher normally is in such a position that he can dominate the will of the students. At the same time, a spiritual guru, that disciples do not go against what their gurus say. So a spiritual guru mostly is in a position to dominate the will of his disciples to get more donations or to get a building constructed, anything of that sort. An employer is always in a position to dominate the will of his employee. The employee has to agree, he has to accept whatever the employer says. So he is in a position to dominate the will of the employee. A father is in a position to dominate the will of the child. A mother is in a position to dominate. At the same time, a child is also in a position to dominate the will of his parents. Nowadays, parents agree to whatever their children say. So, it is dominating the will of other. One party dominates the will of other party to obtain an unfair advantage of the other. Unfair advantage. I said undue advantage. Undue means unfair advantage. More than what is required. So you are taking advantage of a person by making use of your position, of your relation. Your position or your relation is such that you can dominate the will of the other and take his advantage. This is undue influence. Okay?